Okay, guys, we're just going to resume on from our last video. And this, we're just going to pick up where it says other factors impacting adolescent exercise. We're going to start on that slide. And so, kind of coming back and talking about some of these factors that influence adolescent health behaviors, influence their nutrition, eating behaviors, as well as exercise behaviors. So looking at some of the factors, we've already discussed that U.S. adolescents are very, very bad at eating and very bad at exercising compared to other countries. And so let's kind of talk a little bit about why, what factors are involved with if an adolescent's going to exercise and what kind of behaviors they're going to take part in. So when we look at the statistics with families, there's this recent study that was done that looked at 9 to 13-year-olds, and they were much more likely to engage in physical activity during their free time when they felt that they had a safe place to be active, multiple places to be active, as well as parents who actually participated in activities with them. So family factors are very important in the likelihood of if an adolescent is going to exercise. Now, of course, peers during adolescence, peers hold a great weight in terms of influence over adolescents, more so than family and other factors and other mentors and other people involved in adolescence life. So we know that peers influence adolescent activity. We see that a friend or peer support for physical activity is actually a stronger predictor of adolescent physical activity than a person if they had support from a parent or a sibling. So peer support actually weights a lot heavier than sheer parents or sibling support. We looking at, for example, schools and, well, it's still sticking with peers, I guess you could say, and this is involved with schools a little bit, but when we see peer victimization, so we see, a child, an adolescent being bullied, we find that, of course, being victimized by peers actually predicted less willingness to participate or engage in physical activity in overweight youth, which makes a lot of sense. Obviously, if an adolescent feels bullied, then they're going to be even less likely to engage in physical behavior, physical activity. In schools, and so looking at specifically in schools, people like to blame that schools, they're the cause of the reason why, kids are overweight because they don't have recess and they don't provide physical education. But when we look at some of these statistics, and I have some over here, I'm just going to kind of glance at it. When we look at, for example, ninth graders are most likely to regularly take a PE class. That's about 42%. And 12th graders at about 20% were least likely to take a PE class. And just kind of looking at some of, the past, to thinking about what's required in terms of high school classes, and just looking back into your own experience, that makes a lot of sense, because we find that, in school, for example, males are actually 35% more likely to participate than females. And so females only participate about 24% in terms of PE or physical education classes all 5 days of the week. And so we're looking at only 29% of those 9th to 12th graders participating in physical activity all 5 days of the week. And this was done in 2013. So this is a pretty recent survey. This is not like it was done in like 1999 or something. Now, screen-based activity, this is watching TV, playing on a tablet, using computers, using the phone, texting, things like that. We're going to talk about screen behavior in just a few minutes, but just looking at individuals who engaged in high screen-based activity, they tend to engage also in low physical activity. They tend to be more overweight, have more sleep problems, be more depressed, and have higher stress levels. And so, of course, for those of you who have taken my sleep class or have listened to me step onto my soapbox about this, when a person is engaged in looking at a TV, looking at their tablet, looking at a phone, anything that's emitting light unnatural, what we refer to as blue light. It's a part of the spectrum, but blue light we know a lot about, can influence the brain. And basically your screen is telling your brain that it's time to wake up and that it's daytime. And so when the message gets sent from your eyes, that it's light, to your brain that you should be awake, that's fine and dandy if it's noon. But when we're talking about 11, 12, 11 p.m., midnight, 1 a.m., and you're on your phone or you're on a tablet or you're on your laptop, you're sending your brain the wrong signals and your brain gets super confused. And so this is a reason why a lot of people tend to have sleep problems. And a lot of young adolescents and children tend to have insomnia, and that's because they're having this difficulty go to sleep simply because their brain is confused and is told that it needs to stay awake. And so this plays a critical role. We're going to talk about sleep in adolescence here in a few minutes, but this does play a role in terms of affecting sleep. And then when your sleep's affected, your memory is affected, your attention is affected, your mood is affected. And so when we get this sort of feedback loop with the hormones, and we're getting the signal about hey, release more or less of this hormone. Oh, we're tired, release more or less of this hormone. Oh, we're hungry, release more or less of this hormone. We're getting all these really, really bad signals. And so we know that sleep is related to hunger. It's related to what kinds of foods you crave, whether it's sugary foods or high fat foods, salty foods. When you get proper sleep, you're actually a lot less likely to crave sugary foods and fatty foods. And when you're getting proper amount of sleep, you're much more likely to eat healthy. And so there've been actually a lot of really recent study about this, a few studies that were done and sort of turned up some really interesting results in people who aren't getting enough sleep. When we look at sports can be good and can be bad. So just looking at sheer statistics, boys are about 60% more likely. So boys are more likely to play on a sports team. So about 60% or of boys play on a team, whereas for girls it's about 48.5%. So we see boys playing more sports than girls, and we also see that African American boys tend to have the highest participation rate at about 66%, and Latino females have the lowest participation rate at about 45%. So the positive influences is we see improving physical health. We see improving well-being, self-confidence, motivation to excel, working with others, working on a team. These are all great things. We also see that adolescents are less likely to engage in behaviors and risk-taking behaviors, for example, truancy, cigarette smoking, sexual intercourse, and delinquency. So those are some really good effects of sports. But of course, with the good comes the bad. And so some of the negative influences we see, really high pressure to achieve, to win. We see some physical injuries, distraction from academics, pressure from parents and coaches to win at all costs. We see competition anxiety, where they get, almost like stage fright, and that can actually affect their performance. We actually see performance enhancing drugs in adolescence. We see that for female athletes, we see this sort of triad of disordered eating, amenorrhea, which is basically stopping period, and osteoporosis. So we're actually seeing bone damage early in young girls who are competing very, very seriously in athletics. We also see injuries, and these can put people out for quite a while in terms of their academics. So I'm going to go ahead and pause. And we're going to do, I'm just trying to keep these short and quick so that way we can, get through this piece by piece. The next thing we're going to talk about is sleep. And so this one will get us some really good information. I'm probably going to spend a little bit more time on this than I should, just because sleep is my area. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this video and start back up, and hopefully we can get through the rest of these slides tonight.